everybody. How are you doing today? I have Donna Ray here.
Yay! Hi!
Hi, Donna.
Hi!
How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Gerald?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yay.
So Donna Ray, you can find her. Let's go through the places where you can find Donna Ray. You can find her on YouTube at Flannel Jammies Farm.
Yep.
I pronounced that right? Flannel Jammies Farm.
Flannel Jammies Farm.
Yep. And Instagram is Donna Ray Barrow. And everything, of course, will be linked below.
Yay.
So, welcome, Donna Ray.
Thank you for having me today.
You are very welcome. I'm glad you could join us.
Yes.
So you have been on YouTube for less than a year.
Less than a year. I just put up FlossTube number 14. So I'm kind of a new girl on the block.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
So let's rewind a little bit and talk about how did you get into your crafting?
So we'll go all the way back. When I was a child, I had cancer when I was 4. And so my daddy would ask me, my mom would stay with me in the hospital, and daddy would say to me, I'm coming on the weekend, what do you want me to bring? Now I knew that I could ask my daddy for the moon and 3 stars, and he would bring them. But I always asked for paper and colored paper and scissors and glue and glitter and all those things to craft with. So I've been crafting forever, all different kinds of crafts. Stitching started, I think, my early 20s. I was married. I had 2 children, and knew some ladies that were doing this strange counting on fabric, and had no idea what that was about, but it looked kind of cool. And so I started stitching, and I taught myself. I was very fortunate that I had some ladies nearby that I could ask. I think I messed up, and who told me, don't put a knot on the back of your fabric. So I stitched for a long time and then let it go. And then I did all the things. I painted and scrapbooking, and my husband and I do a little stained glass, lots of different hobbies. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I found myself at home more and wanted something I could do just kind of sitting still and being thoughtful and calm. And tripped down to the famous and wonderful Dying to Stitch, which is 12 minutes door to door from my house, a very dangerous prospect, and went in and picked up a little project and never looked back. I'm totally addicted again.
Okay, so let me get this right. You learned to stitch
early 20s.
In your early 20s?
Early 20s.
Okay. And then you kind of lost it for a while, and then until about 4 years ago.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So you're kind of like me, and you're kind of new. You learned in your 20s a long time ago, and then you kind of learned.
When dinosaurs roamed the earth.
I don't mean it that way, because I learned a long time ago too, back when I was a kid. And then I came back to it 2 years ago. Yeah.
The world changed, right? While we were gone, flosses changed, fabric changed.
Patterns changed.
Of course, designers changed. Yeah. There are no ducks anymore on everything. Yeah. It's a whole new world, and it's a bright and beautiful world of stitching. It's amazing to me.
So when you came back to it, do you remember what your first project was when you picked it up there at the LNS?
You know, I believe it was a Bent Creek. I don't remember which one it was, but I was part of the Urban Homesteaders League here in Virginia Beach, and a friend of mine was Lynette Lepper, homesteading on the home front, and I found out that she was a stitcher, and so we did a couple of stitch-alongs together. One was a strawberry pattern from Little House. just a couple little things that we did together, and that really got the juices flowing. And then I was hooked. And of course, Ann Robbins and Pat Ryan at Dying to Stitch are so helpful. And I'd walk in there and I'd say, well, we'll help you out with that. And so they have done great damage to my purse.
I think that, that's anytime you walk into any LNS that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your style then. You like, if I remember correctly, when I watched your videos, and I just watched your most recent video yesterday. So you prefer smaller pieces.
Yes.
More. You go ahead and talk about it. What's your style? What's your style of cross stitch?
So I do prefer a more primitive style. Mm-hmm. I am not a full coverage girl. I'm never going to be a full coverage girl. It's not my style. I prefer primitive. I prefer kind of medium to small. I don't like really small projects, kind of medium size. I'm not going to do one. Someone just told me he's working on something that's going to be about 16 by 20. And I'm not into something that big. I've done a couple that are probably 14, 15 inches. I'm okay with that, but nothing too large. Mm-hmm. I find that it becomes kind of overwhelming. And then I feel guilty because I'm not working on it and finishing it. I feel like I'm a very slow stitcher. I tell people all the time that I'm a slothful stitcher. I'm a stabber, so I don't do the sewing method, and I don't stitch in hand. I use Duchess hoops or a scroll frame. And so I'm a little bit of a slower stitcher, but I love the process of it. I love the history of it. I love the needlemen and the needlewomen that came before us and left us this legacy of art, right? And so the process of it for me is what's enjoyable and soothing and brings me just such delight.
So, where do I even go from there? Because you said so much in that.
I'll stop talking now.
No, you're good. I was lost in everything you were saying. So okay, you're a stabber just like I am, and I'm guessing you don't use a stand or anything. You hold it, and so you're a one-handed stitcher.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I could see where you think you're slow. I don't. When I watch your videos, I don't think you're slow. I'm like, wow, she has a lot done since the last video. So, yeah, but I mean, you also stitch smaller projects. So I do a lot more projects done.
Yeah.
In a time period than say I do. I might get a lot more area covered in my 16 by 20 piece. But, right. It doesn't look like much because it's all on the same project. So, primitive style, you like smaller projects in a hoop. I don't do the sewing method either. I tried that once and it didn't feel right for me.
Well, my stitches aren't as even.
Yeah.
I find I've tried the sewing method several times. I feel like my stitches don't lay as nicely. Mm-hmm. I also tried Q-snaps. I can't do Q-snaps. I don't know. I bought 3 sets in different sizes thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I don't like them, and I don't know why. I mean, I can see that they'd be nice on the hands. Mm-hmm. I can see that, they're just great because you can kind of loosen and tighten. But there's something about the feel of this vintage hoop in my hand. To think about the woman or the man or the little girl or the little boy who stitched with this in their hand. And what were they stitching and what story were they telling? There's something about that just touches my heart. This is kind of part of my personality. I can't read on a tablet. I have to open the book. I have to touch the pages and feel the paper and crack the book open, and the smell of a new book or the smell of an old book, and just touch the cover. There's something, again, it's a process. It's the ritual of doing something almost sacred that appeals to me.
No, I totally get that, because I've tried reading on the tablet too, and I can't do that.
Oh, good. I'm not the only one.
No, you're not the only one. I like having and I have to have a hardback. I don't like paperback.
Yes.
I like, if I buy a book, it's a hardback.
Yep.
I have my row of hardbacks there but they take up more space too. So,
But they're like friends, right?
They are.
On a cold, rainy day when you're not feeling well and you have your tea and, your honey and whatever, and you look at them all lined up, those beautiful hardbacks, they're like friends. Oh, hello, Jane. How are you?
So I'm going to guess if you're like that with books, you probably like paper patterns and not PDFs.
Absolutely, I do. If I download a PDF, I print it out. Yeah. So.
Okay. So then when you go to your stitching, are you a stitcher who likes to keep the pattern exactly prescribed by the designer, or do you like to change it up? Do you like to be creative? How do you like, what does it depend upon the design?
Yeah, it totally depends on the design. If I fall in love with the image that was in the designer's mind that they present on their pattern, then I stitch it that way. I often will change fabrics because, again, R&R Reproductions linen is here. Mm-hmm. And so I can go and say, well, this was the linen that they prescribed, but I love this one so much more. So I often will change linen. I will change a design, thread colors, and elements if I see in my mind something that appeals to me a little bit more. So I kind of will go either way. I don't mind changing them. The first time I did it, I changed something on Paulette Stewart's design. And so, Plum Street is wonderful. And I felt terrible about doing it. And I had just come back to stitching, and I had this design of hers, and I was changing colors, and I was going to post my finished product. And so I thought, oh, she's going to hate me. Oh, she won't be my friend anymore. So I wrote to her and said, I changed some colors, and if you don't want me to post this, I won't. I'll just keep it to myself. But if it's okay with you. And she was so gracious and kind, as Paulette always is, and said, of course you can post it. I want to see the colors that you did. Yes, I don't mind at all. So I did that the first couple of times I changed. And then I learned that designers really, if you are just changing colors, often they're happy to see those changes. They want to see what was in your mind. And if you're changing design elements, that's a totally different thing. Then it's no longer their design, really, in my mind.
I think as a designer, limited designer.
But lovely designs.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think it depends. I think if you're just changing minute small pieces of the design, it still has it still looks like the design. You might change, but it's still their design. You just might have changed, like, for instance, I changed bits and pieces of Let Freedom Ring by Lila Studio because I didn't like the way the words around the Liberty Bell looked. I thought it was too cluttered in that area, in my own personal opinion.
Sure.
Against the designer. And sure. I moved those words down into the one word bubble, and I removed the title of the design from the design itself because I didn't necessarily want the strawberries on it.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
So to me, it's still her design.
Right.
I removed an element and adjusted where some of the words were. So
you've just done an adaptation.
Exactly.
To suit your taste. It's kind of like when I talked to Pat Ryan about samplers and the difference between a reproduction, which is a true copy of the original sampler that that little girl or that little boy stitched,
Mm-hmm.
and an adaptation where you've changed the size dramatically, or you've taken elements out, or you've added elements. So that's kind of the difference. I can see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, you know, I still am using their guts, their framework.
Intent. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just modifying it to how I, like you said, how you perceived it.
Yes.
How you envision it, how you would want it on your wall, because, you know, everyone has their own tastes. And
yes.
So, yeah. So, and as a designer, I would want somebody, me personally, I would want somebody to be creative and modify to their design, to their aesthetic, because I'm just putting something out there that I see in my head.
Right.
You know, everyone's going to have their own views and opinions and feelings.
That's good to know. Thank you, Gerald.
So, just my thoughts. You know, every designer might have a different opinion about that. So that's just my own, you know, Ginger Gerald Designs thought. So, okay. So let's talk about your YouTube channel. Why did you decide to get into YouTube?
Yeah, FlossTube. I was at home one day and I watch some urban homesteaders on YouTube occasionally. And I had seen a couple of people on Instagram kind of post this word FlossTube. Like, I had an Aunt Flossie, but I don't think they're talking about her, right? So I'm on YouTube and I said, well, I'll just try to figure this out, because surely I can figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
So I type in FlossTube, and of course, you know, you get this amazing list of people and channels to watch. And so I started watching, and then there was no dinner. My husband was kind of saying, would you like me to cook some supper? And he did, because I couldn't stop watching. And I watched for many, many months and weeks, mm-hmm. and started talking to fellow stitchers. Hey, have you watched this thing, FlossTube? Like, I don't know. Did you watch so-and-so? And did you like that? And then they would say, oh, did you watch so-and-so? Oh my goodness, yes, I watched that. But what I found, I love so many of our FlossTubers, right? Thousands of FlossTubers. I watch new ones all the time. But I found that there were some dark corners of FlossTube. There were some places where perhaps people were unhappy, or they'd had a disagreement with another stitcher, or they were being judgy about other people's stitching and the way that they did it, or their process, or their colors. And I started FlossTube. I even said to friends, I have nothing to show. I'm a slow stitcher. Like, I have no idea what I'm going to show. But I want to be a place of joy.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a place where people feel safe to come and share whatever their work is. If you're stitching on a Haid, if you're stitching on a Dimensions kit, if you're stitching on a Brenda Gervais, if you're stitching, you know, Heritage Sampler by Paulette, whatever you're stitching, you're welcome in my spot. And I applaud you for taking up this craft. I wanted to honor the needle people who had come before us. And I wanted to just be a happy and positive place, because this is an amazing craft in our country's history, in our world's history. And there's been this resurgence of it. You know, lots of new stitchers, lots of people like you and I who have come back
mm-hmm.
to stitching. And I wanted to celebrate that. And that's kind of how the channel started. And the name So I have this little, my husband and I have this little urban homestead. I've been gardening for years. We lived in Navy housing for many years, traveled all over the world, and the movers would have to move my landscape rocks and my gardening tools. We were gardening in Navy housing. I mean, it was crazy people, okay? And so we many years ago started calling our little, whatever our little plot of earth was, Flannel Jammies Farm, because I am almost always found in the garden or talking to the bees in my flannel jammies. And so, you know, I go out in the morning and I just say, hello, girls, how are you? And I talk to the bees and I wander with the butterflies and I check for tomatoes. And it's often in my flannel jammies. And so our homestead is called that. When we sell honey and other hive products, it's called Flannel Jammies Farm. And it made total sense that the channel would be called that. I have a very neglected blog called Flannel Jammies Farm as well that has some recipes and some shots from our little plot of earth.
So I'm guessing right now we're filming in summer. I'm not exactly sure when this is going to go up on the channel.
Yeah.
So are you still going out in your flannel jammies in summer? That was one of my questions I was going to have. I had planned on that.
Yes, actually, this is ever so personal. I'm going to clutch my non-pearls. But I wear flannel jammies and gowns all year long. It's ridiculous. A flannel is soft and it's all about.
Well, I mean, yes, you have different weights of flannel. So
yes,
you can
absolutely.
have light flannel. So.
And I'm so tactile. I'm ridiculous in stores because I have to touch everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything has to be soft and it has to feel good and be comforting. And yeah, it's all about the pretty. So they have to be pretty flannel. Yeah. Anyway, yes, I do.
Okay.
Is this just the most fun interview ever?
It is. Well, I was going to ask that. I didn't mean to get too personal, but I was like, flannel, pajamas or,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay. And I see you have on your desk in the back there, you have what I think is bee honey something. Can you
something? So today we are in a space that you've not seen on my channel. This is the art room. And so this workbench belonged to my husband's father. And my husband grew up with this workbench in his house and he dragged it home. The board on the wall that has our baskets hanging from it is actually the spring from my husband's crib as a baby. And
Wow.
So we painted it and hung it up there. And so this is our workbench. And yes, this right here is honeycomb. And it's wax comb that the bees build. They have these, in their abdomens, they have these little openings and they secrete sheets of wax. And that's how they build honeycomb, which is where they live. It's where they raise their babies. It's where they store pollen, which is their protein source, and nectar, which they then turn into honey, which is their food through the winter. So this bar I actually pulled out. I recently did an educational program at one of our local schools, and we took some comb with us so that we could show. And you can see part of the comb is light in color and part is dark. And so that darker color is where where the queen bee laid eggs and the worker bees raised babies in that darker part. The lighter part is actually where they stored nectar, and that became honey.
Excellent. Okay. And if you haven't checked out Donna Ray's channel yet, she does really neat little segments on some of her videos showcasing her bees or her garden, and just different things that she does throughout her non-stitching world.
Yes.
So go check that out because it's really neat. I really love the part that she showed about how they rehoused some bees.
Yes.
Whenever they needed, because the bees grew, the colony, yes,
Colony.
colony
Yes.
bees got too big for the hive that they were currently in, right? So you have to
do a split.
Mm-hmm.
In the early spring, honeybees have huge population growth all of a sudden. Certain bees have made it through the winter. They've a lower population amount, and then the queen starts ramping up her laying of eggs again. And they have this huge population explosion. And if you do not split them into two hives, they will often do their natural, hey, we're too crowded and we need a new home, and they'll swarm. And so the queen and about 50% of the bees will leave and go look for much roomier digs. We've had that happen a lot. As a matter of fact, we started in beekeeping. I went out and captured a swarm. I climbed a tree and captured it and brought it home, put it in a hive. But if you split them, then the bees feel like they've swarmed. And so then both hives, the one without the queen will build a new queen. The one with the queen will just continue working, and then you'll have two healthy hives from one.
So it's really neat to learn all these different little things, and it's awesome, so neat because you're in an urban setting.
We are in a very urban setting.
Do you get feedback from your neighbors for having these bees?
Yeah, interestingly, we live on 1/5 of an acre, a tiny little urban homestead right near town center in Virginia Beach. And so we're in quite an urban area. On one side of us is a family that homeschools their 7 children. We have neighbors all around. No one has said a word. We had a neighbor behind us who, after we'd been keeping bees for 2 years, peeked through the fence one day and said, "Are those bees?" And so that she scared me to death. I screamed, that night I sent my husband over with a jar of honey for her, and it just made everything right. So
okay.
We grow lots of herbs. My husband is always sneaking in tomato plants in the front yard where they shouldn't be. We line our garden beds with buried upside down wine bottles in different colors. We have bottle trees, it's a big southern thing. No one has said anything. They think we're pretty quirky, but no one has said anything.
Awesome. Well, so that's a little bit about the farm, which I was going to ask about anyway, so that's awesome. If you want to learn more about the farm, you can definitely go check out Donna Ray's channel because she's always throwing in little tidbits here and there on her channel, which is awesome. That's always my favorite part about her channel is watching about the bees, and I like the stitching too. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I do. I like the stitching, not my style. It's because we have different tastes in stitching, which I love. But I love learning about the different aspects. I learned so much about watching about the separating of the bees, the bee colonies. You don't learn about those things typically, especially in science class these days.
Yeah.
At least here in America, I don't know. So anyways, so what is your favorite part since starting the channel about starting the channel?
It has to be the viewers. It has to be the viewers. I never expected to have 100 subscribers and to have so many people so warmly welcome me to this community has been overwhelming. And the viewers are amazing because they're my friends. I mean, I feel like I've made all of these friends, right? We share this common passion. We ask each other questions. We message back and forth. it's been phenomenal to find this community of people with a heart for stitching like I have. So I think that the other thing, close second, has been being able to share some of the knowledge from Pat Ryan, from Ann Robbins, true rock stars in the stitching community, and to be able to share some of their knowledge with viewers that, you know, may not live close by, may not have ever seen them lecture, to share some of that knowledge, particularly about samplers. Although the ironing video has gotten a lot of play, but particularly about samplers, so that we understand where this craft came from and why it was done. And I think that's a close second, is being able to share knowledge with others.
And Donna Ray hinted there also that she also does a few masterclass type interviews with some local celebrity type people in the cross stitch world there in her neck of the woods. So, which is always fun to watch. So check that out as well. So awesome. So wrapping up, where would you like to see your channel going in the future? What would you like to do? You know, do you have any plans in the coming year? You know, you're coming up on your 1 year anniversary. What would you like to see changing, or not changing necessarily? Where would you like to see your channel going in the coming years to come?
What a great question, Gerald. I would like to stitch more. Honestly, I think if we continue on this vein of sharing information in a positive and encouraging way, so I have a viewer who gave me the greatest compliment. She said, "You're like the Mr. Rogers of FlossTube," which was the greatest compliment ever. You know, I want to continue field trips. I want to continue talking with experts. I want to continue bringing that kind of knowledge to our community. I may not have it, which is why I'm seeking it for myself. But if I'm learning something, I want to share it with others. That's kind of my, I don't know, it's just my heart to keep sharing, keep learning, keep growing, keep finding. So that's where I want to see it go, is just continue kind of on the educational vein. Sharing, yes. Stitching, yes. Showing, yes. Communicating, yes. But continuing on that path of sharing knowledge together. Awesome.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your time with us and your knowledge on your channel.
Thank you. This has been too much fun. Wow, I was nervous, but thank you. It was a lot of fun, and I hope it was a lot of fun for you too, Gerald.
Oh, of course it was. I always enjoy doing these interviews because I get to talk to people I've never gotten to talk to before.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you. And again, if you haven't checked out Donna Ray yet, go check her out on her channel on YouTube. It is Flannel Jammies Farm, again, linked below. You can follow her on Instagram at Donna Ray Barrow, which will be below as well. And give her some love. So thank you again, Donna Ray.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And we will see you on your next video. And again, we will have another video in a couple weeks. So we will see you back here. And don't forget to always be creative.